How often do you find yourself buried in something that takes a lot of concentration? You've gotten into the flow, and then all of a sudden, knock, 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 there's a team member knocking on your door or pinging you on Slack, interrupting your train of thought because they had something where they come into you for a decision and you wonder why they didn't handle it themselves. And when that happens, it takes more than that 5 minutes because it breaks your concentration. And as a result of that, that 5-minute question turns into maybe 20, 30 minutes of you talking with them and then having to get back into that level of concentration again. But by teaching your team not to interrupt you, to be able to think for themselves and come to you with answers and solutions before they make a decision, is going to be able to help them be more strategic in their work. It's going to reinforce their learning. They're going to be better team members, and you won't be having your concentration broken as often. You will be regaining so much time. So think about it. Every time your team, especially if they rely on you for decisions for everything, those interruptions, they slow your progress, increase dependency, and keep your firm from scaling. This is Loren Fogelman with Business Success Solution. And part of what I'm focusing on is how to be able to give your team critical thinking skills in order for them to solve problems and be able to act confidently without waiting for your input every single time. So that is what I want to focus on today and giving you a framework, because by doing this, teach them how to have those critical thinking skills so they're less dependent on you, allows your firm to scale. It allows you to focus on growth and also higher level services for your clients. So those small decisions, maybe they are invoice follow-ups, client questions, or how to structure reports, whatever they are, you have someone coming to you about those things. And they are pretty elementary from your point of view. You think they ought to know this by now or be able to figure it out on their own. But instead, when they get to that point where they feel like they're at a standstill or they're not confident in moving forward, they come into you for input, and that's when the workflow stops, especially if you're not available for them right at that moment. So this is something that is creating a bottleneck in your firm. Now, think about it. On the other hand, if you had a team that came to you less often, what would you do with that freed up time each week? And how much time would it actually free up each week? Would you then focus on your own business development, maybe improving services, or even taking back some personal time without any guilt or worry? So we want to be able to look at how to teach your team to be more independent thinkers and have some of those critical thinking skills. So I'm going to teach you a couple of steps on how to be able to get started so that your team is more self-reliant and they get confidence on how to be able to figure things out for themselves instead of coming to you for the easy solution, because all they had to do is interrupt you, you tell them what to do, or you do it yourself, and then they get to go back. So I want to be able to show them how to be able to put a little bit more effort into things before they go ahead and interrupt you. What we want to do is have you think about what's one or maybe two recurring tasks that you know your team ought to be able to do on their own. And think about it. Ask yourself, what tasks could my team handle if I gave them some guidance? And if I was able to give them that where they were more independent, how much time would that free up for me? So something to think about is maybe you want to approach one of your team members and ask, which client reports do you feel most confident handling from start to finish? And they might say that they can take the monthly reports and they're happy to do it if you show me how to do it, how you want it done, because they don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to disappoint you, or they don't want to disappoint the clients either. So you want to be able to now show them how to do that. When you go ahead and train your team, how do you do that? Do you write out a written process? Do you do it by video? Or maybe you do a combination of both, a written process as well as some video where they can watch you go through the steps. But think about how you train your team up. And I will say, as you start to move in this direction, start small And by doing that and them having some wins, it builds confidence that they can go ahead and take this on themselves. And it builds confidence for you that you're okay with letting it go because they're doing a good job. And that is going to be beneficial on both sides. So once you've gone ahead and identified those 1 or 2 tasks that you want to be able to hand off to your team and train them on how to do, then we want to put in some boundaries. This is where your team knows what they can decide on their own and when they need some input. Maybe it's input from you, maybe it's input from someone who's more senior than them that's on the team, so that there's a layer between them and you. You're not getting as many interruptions. But by doing this, it helps to establish some clarity as to what's okay to move forward with and when they need to be able to seek out help. And as a result, they don't freeze up as much, but it also starts to minimize the interruptions. So for something like bookkeeping services, you want to be able to say, okay, you can go ahead and handle the invoice follow-ups completely, send the reminders, make the calls, and if there's any escalation within the policy, go ahead and implement that, as long as you're really clear on what our policy is and how you want to approach that. And the times to bring me things to my attention is when things maybe are outside of scope. So those outside of scope requests, you want them to be able to come to you. And there might even be some guidelines regarding outside of scope requests as well that you give them as you're creating more structure around this. So once again, giving them some guidance about what to do and where they need to come to you or someone that's more senior than them. And then if it's something around tax and a client is reaching out with a tax question, maybe you can say, you can handle those straightforward questions that we've encountered before. And anything that is more client specific or more complex, then go ahead and come to me. So once again, we now have the 1 or 2 things that you're going to start to delegate to them and be able to teach them how to do. Now you've created some structure and boundaries on how they can move forward on their own and when they ought to go ahead and maybe check in about guidance on what to do and how to be able to proceed forward. Now we're coming to the next step, which is being able to promote them, encourage them to be problem solvers. So when they are looking at something where they don't actually know the answer right away or know how to do it right away, we're going to give them some guidance. Before they come and reach out to you or go to that more senior member, we want them to do 3 things. We want them to be able to answer 3 things. The very first one is, what would you do in this situation? So we want them to be able to understand what they would do in this situation. And then we want them to come up with 2 options on how to move forward and the pros and cons of each, why this is a good decision and why this might not be the best decision. And then we want them to tell you which one they recommend and why. So those 3 questions or statements are going to help them to start things through on their own, as opposed to just coming to you or someone else for the easy answers. Once again, what would you do here? And give me 1 or 2 options along with the pros and cons. And then which one do you recommend and why? Those are the 3 questions you want them to be able to ask and answer before they reach out to you or somebody else. So if it is where a team member is stuck, they need to get some guidance, what you want them to be able to present to you is, I see 2 ways to handle this client request. Option 1 goes ahead and saves time, but delays the report. Option 2 keeps the schedule, but requires a couple extra steps. And I recommend option 2 because it actually maintains higher quality that our firm is looking to maintain. So they're telling you what they've figured out. They've given you the options and why each one is maybe good or better, the pros and cons, and then which one they recommend and why. They give me that information and your response is, perfect. That's exactly how I want your decisions evaluated. So now you're not judging what they said or didn't say. What you're doing is reinforcing the behavior of going through those 3 questions before they came to you. This reinforces the learning. And as a result of that, it starts to change your team culture, where it is now a culture of learning and strategic thinking. They're encouraged to be able to figure things out independently. They gain confidence in that, and they are now going to become proactive problem solvers, no matter which role someone is in. So once again, this applies to all roles within your firm, no matter how small or how big that role is. We want to encourage everybody in the firm to be able to figure things out on their own before they come and reach out to you or somebody else. Now, there's another step, is there's times that they want to be able to figure things out on their own first. We're encouraging them to do that. So we need some boundaries around that. They need guidance about doing that research and being able to understand what went well and what didn't go well, because things don't always turn out as planned. So the first thing you want to do is set, once again, some structure and some clear expectations. As far as what to do, as far as research on their own, if it's maybe a quick procedural question, they're allowed to spend 5 to 10 minutes on their own researching first on what the options are and which one that they think is a best way to move forward. So that's one thing as far as the simple things, the procedures. Now, if this is something a little bit more complex, or it is specifically about a client question, then they have the ability to spend 15 to 30 minutes being able to figure out what their options are, pros and cons, and which one that they think is the best option before moving forward. We're maintaining that 3-step framework, but now we're giving them some guidance as to how much time, so that they don't get caught up and like 2 hours later, they're still trying to figure everything out. So we want it to be where, yes, they have some time to be able to start figuring answers out for themselves, but not so much time that it takes away from something else. So once they have all that, then they know if they still need support because they didn't find the right answer, they ought to be able to reach out either to a senior team member or to you to be able to get clarity on what to do, because they're stumped. They weren't able to get the information within that time frame. So once again, we want to be able to give them those guidelines about what they need to do, be able to come up with some possible solutions, what their reasoning are, and also could include any risks that they see. And yes, this is something new, which means that perfection is not going to be the standard or apply yet. Because with anything new, there will be mistakes, or there will be times that they didn't do it exactly as you would like, and that it's going to create learning opportunities. So once again, don't see mistakes as failure or something to get angry with them at, because they put the effort in with what you told them to do, and be more critical thinkers. But they need to be able to realize that there's times it's not going to work out as planned, and those mistakes become learning opportunities. And I understand that sometimes they seem like expensive ones, and then you second guess yourself. But we want to really encourage them to develop this skill set. So when things don't go as planned or as smoothly as they would have liked, we want to turn this once again into a learning opportunity to review what happened. And once again, 3 things to be able to have this review. What went well? Where did you feel stuck? And what would you do differently next time? Once again, what went well? Where did you feel stuck? What would you do differently next time? And it might be something where you're saying to them, so tell me what you tried and learned before asking for guidance. And they might say, well, I reviewed the client file and considered 2 options, and this is what I recommended and why I decided to move in that direction. So now you have a discussion where you're able to give them supervision, and they can learn how to be able to do it differently to get a better outcome next time they're in a similar situation. So this type of review process reinforces learning and also continues to create critical thinking skills, where they are now growing into this new role and having this new sense of independence. And If you want, I would even say take this review process of those 3 questions and turn it into a team meeting where maybe everybody is sharing something that they learned or how they approached it. Or maybe you're just taking one situation and where you're discussing it as a team so that everybody can learn and gain from moving forward and having this review process. So here's some things for you to think about as we're looking at you moving in this direction of turning your team into critical thinkers so that they are more proactive and responsive and less interruptions for you, is once again, 1 or 2 tasks that you can give them that they can now take on that they haven't been able to do until then. Decide how you want to teach them, create some clear boundaries and structure about how you want them to approach it before they reach out to you with coming up with some options and pros and cons. Be able to, once again, understand what those 2 solutions are that they need to come up with before they ask for input. That's going to be a requirement. And then you can also practice some client scenarios with them in order to be able to see how they do with this, because role playing, even though nobody likes it, it actually is very, very beneficial. But being able to maybe put some client scenarios in place and having them practice it first will be able to give them some feedback and some more structure and reinforce the learning and the new process that you want to put in place. And then also have an opportunity for reflection when things don't go well, whether it is in a one-on-one supervision meeting or as a team meeting. And that is where maybe when there's some places where it did go well, you can also celebrate the initiative that they took and how this worked out well because they did, and without any interruption or input from you. So once again, think about, have that weekly team meeting, not just be able to look at where things didn't go well and have it as a learning opportunity, but also to celebrate the initiatives that they're taking, moving in this direction. So doing this is like compounding interest. You understand that. You start small, it grows over time. Your staff's going to be able to handle more challenges. Clients will actually receive better service because there might be faster turnaround times, and you might gain back some precious time to focus on business growth, engaging higher quality clients, or maybe just taking back some of that time for yourself and your own self-care without guilt or worry. So if you feel that this is something that appeals to you, but you would like to have some assistance and guidance on how to be able to implement this with your firm, then let's have a conversation. Go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk, and let's discuss exactly how to be able to empower your team, increase revenue, and also reduce your workload because your team is now able to be more proactive as far as moving forward and independent thinkers. So I would love to hear what you took away from this, what this reinforced for you, maybe some insight where you can learn use some deeper learning, and please go ahead and share how this resonated with you. But once again, right now, all I want you to do is pick that one task you want to delegate to a team member. Think about how to be able to give them this framework in order to be able to encourage them to be more independent and critical thinking, and start small, offer some structure, and watch your team rise up to the challenge. You can do this. Loren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to be able to double their revenue, working half the time.